Hello and welcome to Gym World Worldwide, the #1 fitness business news show in Nunavut and Rapa Nui. If you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button now, and also throw us a like if you like it. I'm joined by my co-hosts John Franklin and Mark Fisher. Today we have a very, very special guest, 10 times CrossFit Games announcer, co-founder of Dead Boys Fitness, and strength trainer to the stars, Josh Gallegos, a.k.a. Joshy G.
Joshy G. In the mix.
Hey now. Wow, that I got a Morning Zoo Crew intro, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had that made just for you, and I was so excited to play it, and I'm so glad it worked on the soundboard. Josh is also a big nerd, so I'm very excited to have him here today. As always, we're bringing you the best and worst stories from the world of fitness business. And we have a lot to get through today. We're going to talk about pro athletes. We're going to talk about fitness franchises. We're going to talk about fitness business influencers and gurus. So I think we should just dive right in. So first story for today, Tom Brady's TB12 is teaming up with Brandon Marshall's House of Athlete. And so for those of you that don't know, I don't watch football, but I guess Tom Brady's jersey was number 12, right? And so that's where I guess this brand came from. Is his jersey, right? And he has a book that came out a few years ago, 5 years ago, called the TB12 Method. And that spawned this methodology, also a supplement line, fitness retail brand. And it seems like it's, I guess it's kind of like a rehab athletic performance program. And I guess you have to buy the book to get the full story there. Yes, Mark?
I mean, I think that's precisely correct, Mateo. Clearly, they are really stingy with their IP, because I Googled it for, 45 seconds straight, and I couldn't find anything about it. And in fact, I didn't know that his jersey was number 12. What are the odds that there are precisely 12 principles, and that's his jersey? It's amazing.
Bro, I actually want to do a little breakdown of the website because I completely agree. It was very hard for me to figure out exactly what it is that he sells and what this program is. But so, yeah, I guess you can, there's supplements you can buy. There's branded foam rollers and bands. And there's also physical locations. And I guess the interesting thing about that is it's kind of like, I guess, what Mr. Beast did with his hamburger kind of startup chain, where he, I guess, rents space or is invited to open up space in like existing big box gyms. There's this partnership that's been announced between him and another footballer, Brandon
a sports ball
Marshall,
person.
Right?
Sports ball person.
The man, a pigskin guy. And it's, I guess, again, it's also a little bit confusing as to what the partnership is. I think he's just opening up in this, what's called the House of Athlete, this other NFL fitness brand here.
So, Teo, have you ever seen Tom vs. Time?
No, I definitely have not.
This is a 6-part documentary on Tom Brady. It was when Facebook was making their large push from like the newsfeed into video, and they took a bunch of money and put it behind this show to get a bunch of people watching video on Facebook. And the premise of the show was just Tom Brady is old and he is still very good at football. And so they were just trying to break down what makes Tom Brady so good at football, even though he's so old. And it talked about how he just had discipline and like this great routine and how he was so obsessed. And like the one thing that got the most attention was that he had this like team, like this staff of like people who just like came to his house and rubbed his muscles really hard and made them like long. It was called like muscle lengthening. And I'm assuming muscle lengthening or that thing has something to do with this. And then he had like a very regimented supplement routine and a very regimented diet. Kind of like the guy from Colonel that we talked about before who, tracked everything incredibly meticulously and used that to extend his life. Tom Brady was doing the same thing with sport. He tracked everything very meticulously, had like a very regimented routine, and that is how he became so good at football. And because, or that's how he was able to stay so good at football for so long. And so I'm guessing with so many people watching that and him being super famous and FTX collapsing, he's just looking for opportunities to make a little bit of coin.
Well, that seems to be it, right? I think there's a trend going on with the pro athletes where it's like it's not just about performance now. It's like this holistic approach, right? It's not just deadlifting a lot and then doing shuttle sprints or whatever it is you do. It's you got to meditate, got to get in the mind gym, you got to take your supplements, you got to massage your joints and have dudes massage your joints and make sure that your stuff's long, right? All the stuff stays long on your body, right? So yeah, it's these multifaceted different pillars, right? It seems like Tom Brady has 12 steps, and I think with this House of Athlete thing, it's a similar idea where it's I think it's like 5. It's like hydration and fuel and then the mental game as well. Mark, you're really into methodologies that people can continue to do for the entirety of their lifetime. What do you think about this new hot trend about staying fit for the long haul?
Well, I really like the trend of staying fit for the long haul. And I think for anyone listening, for maybe some takeaways from all of this is, listen, this is going to be an awesome thing for you to sell. So you're thinking about what you're marketing and what the benefits you're offering are. That's great. I think, frankly, from a mission perspective, if you want to make the world better, helping people age better is awesome. And I have a little gentle, maybe skepticism about the tidal wave of celebs entering into the space, because the challenge is, yeah, you say, go on.
Really?
Well, I think the recovery thing is real. I think right now there's a lot of quackery going on, much of it well-intentioned, because a lot of the, I think, foremost, most currently embraced recovery modalities, we just don't have a lot of research on them yet. They kind of make sense. They make sense mechanistically, but there's not really like a lot of, controlled studies to say what they're going to do. I think on balance, if you can afford them, most of them probably don't seem like they're dangerous. I think, speaking to the checklists, the 5 checklists or the 12 checklists, I'm a fan of less on the checklist, and you do have to find some way to slice it up. And, the reality is, if you're going to slice it up a bad way is not, I kind of like House of Athlete, right? It's like going to be training, going to be nutrition, going to be recovery, going to be mindset. They added a 5th on tribe, community. Okay, I can buy that. But I think the challenge that we will run into, which there's no way around in our society, audience is a big piece of marketing, right? And by someone being very successful as an athlete, that's going to give them a certain credibility in the eyes of a lot of consumers. But quite often, these people are genetic freaks. Tom Brady might be actually the last person you want to look to and say, well, I'll do what Tom Brady does, and then I'll get Tom Brady's results. Now, again, I don't know what TB12 is, because the incredible lock and key under which they keep their IP. I think as a rule, muscle lengthening is probably not a thing that can happen unless you're actually doing surgery on insertion points. But leaving that aside, this is not to say that Tom Brady doesn't have valuable things to say, but this is one of the core issues in all fitness, right? You just look at the person that's super jacked and super high performer, and you think, well, if I do exactly what they do, I'll get the same results. But interpersonal variability is a real bitch. Sometimes you don't want to do the exact thing that one of the greatest genetic freaks who ever lived, who is, in addition to being genetically blessed, I think none can disagree, but has also worked his butt off and taking nothing away from his work ethic. I'm just not certain that I look to that as a model that the vast majority of the population should attempt to follow closely. Though admittedly, I think we all know that having large, presumably burly men come to your home and rub your muscles would be soothing.
Question for you, Josh, as someone who does work with performers and elite athletes. Part of that is, I imagine, the selling point for Dead Boys is people see like wrestlers and people that they want to emulate and be just like. How do you strike that balance of like, okay, yes, you want to be like your favorite wrestling star? We can totally help you do that, but let's not get you jumping off and taking the chair and slamming them first. Let's just do couch squats first, and then maybe the next thing.
Well, that's so interesting, because in Dead Boys Fitness, 12 points of performance, number 4 is hit your opponent over the head with a chair. So
right.
That's what we got going for us. No, I think the message that we come across is that we're going to be realistic. You're never going to look like Seth freaking Rollins or Becky Lynch, and that's never our goal. We're never trying to sell our audience a bag of goods that they're probably never going to get. Our goal is to motivate people that maybe have never worked out in their entire life. And I think, and I could be wrong, but kind of going off of what Mark said, right? Looking at Tom Brady as the blueprint, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to look like Tom Brady, but maybe I want to perform like Tom Brady. And even growing up as a kid of the 80s and 90s, going to the gym with my dad, my goal was always like, oh man, Arnold was my guy, or Stallone, like all these big beefy bodybuilders. And then being a fan of professional wrestling, starting to see like the more athletic guys like Bret Hart, like Shawn Michaels, like Macho Man. I'm like, well, I don't want to look like these big burly monsters. I want to look like I'm athletic. And I started to gear towards those guys. So that's kind of the message that we as Dead Boys Fitness get across to people is we want you to be more athletic. We want you to live longer. We want you to be able to perform better. We want you to be able to go to Disneyland and be able to, carry your kid around the park all day and not get tired or not get winded, And I think with the celebrity or in professional wrestling, we call it a gimmick, right? Everybody's got a gimmick. I think most of these are gimmick based, right? If you're a fan of Tom Brady, it doesn't matter what he's going to sell. You're going to buy it regardless, right? If you're a fan of Brandon Marshall, if you're a fan of Chris Hemsworth, Thor, right? I think their intention is good, is that they want people to do something. But I think more of the message of like, hey, look, we know you're not going to look like Thor from Love and Thunder, right? That's impossible. You're not going to look like Thor at Love and Thunder doing Chris Hemsworth app-based workouts. But if you've never worked out in your life, and you get motivated by watching Thor Love and Thunder, if you get motivated by watching Seth freaking Rollins in a WrestleMania match, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to start doing like couch squats or doing, no push-up burpees or couch dips or, whatever the case may be. That is, I think, the overall message for us. And I think deep down inside, whether it's Tom Brady, Chris Hemsworth, street parking, all these other different, at-home workouts, I think at their core, that is their goal. At least that's what I'm hoping, right? Because that's what my goal is to get everyday average people a chance to be motivated.
Something I do think that is interesting from all this is, you're seeing these pro athletes sell not just like, strength training or whatever. Like you are seeing that with like House of Athletes. It looks like it is like there are big squat racks there and stuff you can train, but you're also layering on you're stacking other things on top of it, like hydration, meditation, whatever. And there is evidence to, like, there's this study this report that just came out from Accenture that people are down to spend and invest more money on their health and fitness, health and wellness, I guess the broader category, right? And so adding some of these ancillary services does seem to make some sense. People are down to spend money, especially going into 2023, even though there's a lot of talk about like a recession or, people getting kind of scared about what's going to happen next. People are still prioritizing their health and wellness moving forward. There's this quote from the report: in the face of widespread uncertainty and personal financial strains, consumers are considering health and fitness to be an essential category alongside with groceries, household cleaning products, etc. And 2/3 of the survey respondents said while they feel financially squeezed, 80% of those also said that they intend to maintain or increase their spend on areas related to health and fitness, such as exercise classes or vitamins or supplements in the next year. So yeah, I mean, while maybe we're not all famous athletes or no famous athletes, and we can't sell them our lengthening muscle methodology, I do think there's something to be said about, trying to cater to some of these new consumer, wants or demands when it comes to like this kind of holistic approach to like training for the long haul or living longer or feeling better on like a wider time horizon.
The thing that I found interesting when we did the trends report is that, yeah, it's true. Each year, consumers are spending more on wellness, but that's moving in lockstep with depression and unhappiness. So even though people are spending more and more and more, every year they become unhappier. So there's no actual correlation between how much you spend on fixing your depression and like being actually not depressed.
It's why you see all these athletes with like coming out with meditation apps or like, therapy apps or mental stress apps or whatever. Yeah, but yes, to your point, it's well, people are getting sadder. More people are trying to sell them meditation apps to fix it. So,
well, that, and I think it's become kind of accepting to whether it's stretching or meditation or focusing on your mental health, or maybe 15, 20, even maybe 10 years ago, that wasn't something that you would look for in either a fitness app or a fitness program.
It's also sweet business, right? Like gym owners have just become savvier, especially CrossFit gym owners. Like, we've progressed so much in the last decade. But before, if you have everyone's offering training, it's very easy to peg like your training costs this, my training costs this, and this gym charges that. But then if you come into a sales consultation and say, well, I include mental wellness and I help you with your nutrition and I do text messages for accountability, it kind of like scrambles the brain a little bit with pricing and makes it a lot easier to charge a premium price versus if you're just offering training. So not only is it more commonly accepted and a thing that people are actively seeking, it also helps gym owners make more money.
Yeah, that's precisely what we're seeing actually at MFF. In fact, we are launching a new service this year. For the first time, we're dipping our toes in the high-ticket water, and it's exactly because of that. And again, in a perfect world, like always, it's ideally virtuous that there's a certain type of individual that has the discretionary income and a real meaningful desire to make change. And if you package it all together, you can really create a really awesome and compelling experience to support them. And I'm really bullish on it. Yeah, I feel good about all of these things, and I'll give you one more data point from Franchise Land as our unofficial franchise correspondent. One of the hottest franchises in the scene right now is a mental health care franchise. It's called Ellie. Super bullish on it. They are on fire. We narrowly decided to go with Owlet over them. They were another like top contender for which one we were going to go in on at some point. You know, if there's any territories left, I think I still might like to do it. But it is sort of fascinating to see that as just one data point for what Josh is saying, the continued acceptance and proliferation of the importance of mental well-being. To see a mental health care franchise on fire, don't think anybody would have seen that one 5 years ago.
To close this segment out, I think there are some things to learn from, you know, these ancillary or new services that people are adding on to their fitness businesses. But before you look up House of Athlete and decide, yes, I also want to add a hydration pillar program to my box gym, John found these reviews from the House of Athlete Google page, Google My Business. This review says, the trainers were fantastic. The owner, on the other hand, Brandon Marshall, gets you hooked with a moving speech where he offers you a 6 weeks free challenge with a required refundable deposit in order to hold you accountable, which he promised to return after the challenge. However, he never actually intended to do so. So it's all a lie. He was dishonest. So here's another one. The 6 week challenge is all great until you decide to not join. If you decide to not join, they keep your money anyway, and they treat you like you're the problem. So it looks like not even the elite of the elite pro athletes are immune to
The old 6 week
the
challenge.
old free 6 week challenge. Switcheroo.
Well, when
we know and love.
When you put the article in the document, I went and looked at the gym because there's one 60 miles away from where Mateo and I live. And I was like, holy shit, this place looks amazing, right? It has like a very large like boutique entrance and this huge like staircase where you like sit down and take pictures for your social media. And they had the recovery room with like the sauna and the cold plunge and the running treadmill. And yeah, they put those like inspirational quotes on your coffee. And all I could, that rig, that's like an $80,000 rig. And the only thing I could think of is, damn, this place does not make money. There's no way that this place is printing. This is so niche. And so I decided to go and look through some of the reviews. And sure enough, just a little touch of gym launch in there.
Just a little.
I mean, it was a few years ago. Maybe it's really changed. Oh, it's
Sorry, I was
listen.
too slow.
Again, like going back to what I said earlier. I mean, everybody's got a gimmick, and that seems like a gimmick that probably didn't work out in the long run for that gym. But I think the biggest challenge Dead Boys Fitness ever has is like, make sure you log in your scores. That's the type of challenge that I'm more or less encouraging my clients to do. So the minute that you're starting to be like, no, give me your money and I promise I'll give you back, I just feel like it's a work. It's like, like I'm probably not going to see this. But again, I'm not a member of that gym. I don't know if that's how it works, but that's not a good look.
I am genuinely curious. I wish there was some way. Obviously, there's no real way to get this data, but obviously, Gym Launch was this massive thing, right? So for listeners that are not somehow have missed the thread about this, Gym Launch is a massive gym mentorship program that several years ago burst onto the scene and became the massive size compared to any other gym coaching program. And admittedly, this was the time before they were, maybe there were as many of them and they were as sophisticated. But the premise of the heart of Gym Launch was in fact this thing, which these individuals had experience with, which they didn't care for, where you offer a free 6-week fat loss program on Facebook. Then you come in, they sell you on it, and they say, oh, but you have to give us a $600 deposit. But don't worry, we'll give you the money back if you lose your weight. So leaving aside from a behavior change perspective, that being probably problematic. But at any rate, presumably they lose their weight, they're on fire, and then you say, all right, I'll give you the money back. Do you want to just roll a new membership? And in theory, they do. And the thing about that challenge was it's fascinating now because we're a few years away from it, and a lot of people did it. It seemed to work like gangbusters in tons of market. You kind of had two buckets of people at the time. There were the people that were doing it and making money hand over fist, or at least it seemed. And then you had the other people who were resentful and like angry and bitter, like, F that guy with his mustache and his muscles, and I tend to be a little bit more like pragmatic and agnostic about these things. But some of those individuals, I assume, did really well and might have really been able to leverage into good businesses. They're probably no longer offering it just because it probably burnt the whole market. You can't do it in any market anymore. People know what they're getting into. And then I imagine there are other people that their entire business went down in flames because they were just flooded with a ton of clients. They didn't really have the fulfillment system to hold on to long term. But because of the sheer number of individuals that did that program were paying, I think, was it $40,000 a year for that mentorship? I mean, they were paying some cash. But some of them had to have been, just from a sheer numbers perspective, savvy operators. So Universe, or in the unlikely event, Gym Launch, if you want to release data and let us know what happened long term, I'd love to get a little VH1, where are they now behind the music, to understand what happened to a lot of those individuals. Because I don't really know anybody running that play anymore, but I bet some are maybe doing okay now.
I mean, I could spend a whole hour talking about Gym Launch.
Yeah.
I mean, we made our. I mean, we just didn't use the free word. We just ran that. I mean, those ads made.
Mark Fisher Fitness is a 6-week
successful.
makeover.
I mean, yes,
in 2011, we launched it. So yeah,
we changed it to
charged
42
them.
days, and then yeah. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
haven't you made like $10 million, Mark, from
Yeah.
the paid
from
6-week
yours,
challenge?
yeah. You
Oh
did.
yeah, I have. Listen, I have no judgment about it at all. I even, historically, again, I wasn't really up in arms about the bait and switch was never going to work for me. That for me did feel past the line of lying. I think we all agree marketing is a spectrum, and if you don't use any hyperbole, you will be in trouble. You'll be lost at sea. But there's a certain line, I think, for all of us internally, we say, okay, this is now a lie, right? So I think that for me was probably a little too far. So I don't have a problem with a container where you invite people to take action, because another fitness takeaway, and something for gym owners listening to take about, if you do anything related to fat loss, certainly there's something to be said for a slower and steadier approach, right? Where you focus on one small bite-sized habit. And for a lot of people, that is the better way in. But if you look at the long-term meta-studies on people that have really sustained fat loss, usually they lose a meaningful amount of weight right outside the gate, which is not what you might think. Now, the challenge, of course, of these programs are people go all in. At the end of it, it's not sustainable. And then they're often dashed up against the shores of reality. And now they've really learned how to turn on, and their only other option is off. They don't have any access to a volume knob. So I don't think those challenges in themselves are particularly a problem. And as John mentions, I've used them over the years for great fun and profit. And I think they can be done in ways that can do real violence to people. And I think that the most probably unhelpful way is to monetize fat loss, which I would note is a complex system, which is not one's direct control, as opposed to the behaviors, which as a best practice are usually things you want to be focusing on, the inputs, because human bodies are complicated.
Kind of going off of what you said, Mark, is that the clientele that I am usually are surrounded by are people that not necessarily are looking for fat loss, even though I'm sure that is a goal. It's the fact that they don't know how to maybe eat properly, or they don't know how to take the initial steps. And something like the challenge doesn't really necessarily work for my clientele. It just seems like such a carny move, It's like, oh, win the big prize if you get the ring around the bottleneck. And it's like, that's never going to happen, right?
Well, because
so
you could instant win the challenge. You could instant win if you just signed up for a year at the gym. So that's
exactly. But I think the majority of the people that I deal with do not know what it is like to have a plate full of vegetables. And I'm not just saying that to be malicious or mean. I mean, that's the absolute truth, right? They don't know how to eat properly. They don't know what a vegetable is. Their diet usually is made up of fast food or things that they can get on the go. So being able to just change one thing in their everyday life, whether it's working out 20 minutes doing a complete bodyweight workout, and or saying, hey, look, try incorporating some vegetables or drinking more water or
some
cutting
protein
down
with
the
breakfast
soda.
this week.
Exactly. They don't know that, and their minds are literally blown when they learn, like, oh shit, these are the small little things that I can do that is going to help me gear towards that goal, and those are more sustainable, in the long term, not just 6 weeks and you didn't win the challenge and I'm going to keep your $600, or whatever it is. That's just, again, such a carny move that is genius if it works for you, but that's not something that I would personally want to sign up for as a business owner, to try to put one over my clients, because again, I'm not into it.
Speaking of holistic training, CorePower Yoga, which I believe is the largest yoga brand in the country, has just launched a strength-based format. And this is a pretty big deal because apparently this is CorePower Yoga's first new offering in over 10 years. And this is from the press release. Each CorePower Strength X class, it's called Strength X, includes a dynamic warm-up, 2 muscle group-focused strength circuits, HIIT-style cardio, a core series, energizing breath work, and a cool-down that includes, yoga and all this other good stuff. Coaches will hone in on a key muscle group in each class, upper body, lower body, or glutes, while emphasizing the use of heavier weights to build strength and encourage full range of motion. So yeah, pretty wild and pretty interesting to see, especially because we spent a lot of time the last couple episodes talking about the rise in popularity of strength training, right? The term strength training classes. We saw this report a couple episodes ago from ClassPass that said strength training was the most popular fitness category. You're seeing other people adding strength modalities, that other businesses add strength modalities that normally don't have that. So yeah, we're seeing this trend here again in this yoga franchise or yoga brand. Are they a franchise, Mark, or are they?
They are. My understanding
else?
is I think they are a franchise. And the article that we read where we got a lot of this information, which I must say was, I'm pretty sure, written by ChatGPT-3. I found it the most hilarious,
It was
jargony,
a press release.
PR hilarity. It was basically just buzzwords. It was just like every fourth word was innovation, unique, differentiated, or like every business in the world says, we're the only youpa-doopa-doopa-doop that youpa-doopa-doopa-doop. This is the first time ever that youpa-doop. And then it's something that's like, well, that's a place I think kind of do that. But what's interesting about yoga, this brand, and yoga in general, another topic of conversation in the show is that yoga, in theory, is a nice business opportunity, right? If you're just thinking about the unit economics, you don't need a lot of space, there's no equipment, there's a lot, I think, to commend itself if you're looking purely from a business perspective. So, and maybe that is unfortunately a challenge for yoga. There's also not really much of a moat. There's not really much of a cost to entry because they only have, and only quote unquote, I don't actually have any franchisees. So I'll start with that. I don't have any. But having said that, they only have 220 locations, whereas the larger fitness brands, most of them are 800, 1,000, the real big players in the space. So again, 220 is probably nothing to sneeze at. I was just surprised to see that the largest yoga brand in the industry was at 220.
Josh, in some of the celebrity people that you work with, are you seeing any kind of demand, increased demand in like strength training, or maybe people who normally do like cardio saying, oh, I want to do more strength training now, or vice versa?
I'm always a firm believer that strength training should go along with the programming. To kind of going off of what we were saying earlier about acceptance when it came to health and wellness, as far as mindfulness and whether it's mental health, whatever the case may be. I think now, because strength training, whether it's a doctor that's saying, hey, you should incorporate more strength training, or other coaches or trainers, you're starting to see the yoga community start to embrace it. I know as a CrossFit gym coach back in the day, whether it be men or female that would come in, they'd be like, oh, you know what? I don't want to get too bulky, so I don't want to strength train. I just want to do the cardio or the workout of the day. Now they're starting to see that you're not going to look like your top tier CrossFit athlete by doing the class strength portion, if your CrossFit gym or functional fitness gym does that, right? There's a lot more that incorporates that, but strength training is extremely beneficial. And I think CorePower Yoga must have realized that and like, hey, we should start incorporating that because there is more demand. People are starting to, take their CorePower Yoga membership. They go to a CrossFit gym or a Gold's gym or a Globo gym. They find out that strength training is great. They cut out the yoga and they go and do that, right? And I think that they're starting to realize like we need to incorporate as opposed to, poo-poo it, so to speak. We want to incorporate that. And they were a smart move by incorporating that into their classes. And so, going back to your question, I always try to incorporate some sort of strength training. There's never really like I don't want to strength train when it comes to whether it's celebrity clients or regular clients. It's just something that I like to recommend. And so, before I think there was kind of a stigma with it as far as, people saying, I don't want to get too bulky. Now I think people are starting to realize like, I'm not going to look like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson by taking a 15 to 20 minute strength class, but it's going to help me with my mobility. It's going to help me be stronger. It's going to help me, like I said, function my everyday life better. So why not do it?
John, it took them like 10 years to add a new program. If gym owners are thinking about adding a new ancillary program, whether it's like incorporating yoga, if they are a strength gym, or if they're a yoga studio and want to do some strength training, how do you add a program without the wheels falling off? They obviously took their time with it, but if gym owners want to get into it, have any advice?
We have to think about why they took their time with it, right? If I'm a strength and conditioning gym, it's way the fuck easier to offer a yoga class than if I'm a yoga studio and I want to do strength and conditioning, right? So we offered yoga in all of our gyms. All we had to do was move the shit out of the middle, find the yoga influencer with 10,000 followers and pay their exorbitant hourly rate. And boom, you have a dope yoga offering and somebody who brings people in. If you are a CorePower Yoga, you're located on the third floor of some facility in an office building, and you want to start clanging and banging, that's going to be a lot more technically challenging, and the footprint is going to be way larger, and it's going to be way more, it's going to be way less lucrative than offering like yoga classes, which the footprint's literally like a yoga mat. So you can stuff 40 people in the room, everyone's paying $30 an hour, and that same room probably only trains 8. With a good, proper strength and conditioning circuit. So the reason they took so long is because they're probably like, they're probably in a tough spot. They're probably facing a lot of competition. We know from MindBody's internal reports that yoga is in a downtrend and they need to adapt or die. So I think the advice and the takeaway from gym owners is if you are in a dying vehicle, adapt before you die.
Over in the wacky and wild world of CrossFit, a world that I know and love, John I think knows and loves, Joshy G definitely knows and loves, Marks I think
I've heard of it.
Loves from afar,
I've heard of it.
Like a hug from
Loves
a safe
talking
distance,
about
a socially distanced loving, if you will. Gary Gaines has recently stepped down as the general manager of affiliates over at CrossFit HQ, and this is notable because this is the 6th C-suite or executive kind of level person to leave CrossFit HQ in the last year. They were talking about this over at the morning chalk up. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
I don't think losing 6 people in a calendar year is highly unusual. I mean, like that, the average American changes jobs 12 times, and I think I read that the average tenure for people is like 4.5 years or something in a job. So I don't think it's crazy unusual, but particularly at this executive level, when you have someone come in like Eric and he brings in this team, and now you have someone new like Don, and the old team came in because of Eric, and now they got a new guy they're unsure of. I'm not sure it's crazy unusual. My concern though is, the thing that all these people have in common is they don't have deep institutional, background knowledge of CrossFit and the culture that comes with it. And, it's the culture that's so important here at CrossFit and so different than every other corporation on the planet. This is a company that is really run by the people for the people, for lack of a better term. And
so the takeaway there is people change jobs all the time, and it's not crazy to see 6 people leave at a company. John, agree or disagree with the folks over at Morning Chalk up there?
I think it is very unusual for a company.
You've not had that turnover at Kilo?
Executive departures. Yeah. 6 executive departures in 1 year is very unusual for a company. But it is not unusual for a company that is in distress and in the midst of a turnaround. So we know from our data that U.S. affiliates are down. They're down about 1,000 affiliates in America, and they're down around 1,100 globally. And those are rough estimates, right? And we know from looking at Google Trends that, CrossFit looks kind of like a mountain. It peaked like late 2013 and has just been on a steady decline down since then. And looking at what has happened, we can probably guess that Berkshire Partners, the new CrossFit owners, are not super pleased with how things are going. And they're trying a bunch of stuff, and it's unclear if it's working or not. I mean, just in the last 2 weeks, Andrew Hiller, Craig Ritchie, Nate Edwardson, all pretty famous CrossFit YouTubers, have all posted videos or made public commentary asking people, is CrossFit dying? And the overall consensus is, yeah, it's a hard yes. And so people have asked me my opinion. I think CrossFit, like in the US, is dying, but I don't think it's ever going to die, right? I think it's going to continue to decrease in popularity year over year. It'll eventually plateau and become just this niche fitness thing with a very diehard fan base and continue to change people's lives. But I have trouble seeing a world where it turns into this global phenomenon that's growing super fast without getting a new charismatic leader at the helm again, like a Greg Glassman. Honestly, probably Greg Glassman's probably the only person who can bring it back. So, maybe Glassman buys it back for Berkshire Partners for 10% of what he bought it for, and then turns it around. And that's the story we're all looking. That's the story tale ending. But I think more likely scenario is it continues to decrease and turns into a niche thing like a jazzercise.
Stupid question. Is Berkshire Partners Berkshire Hathaway's? Does it just Warren Buffett own CrossFit?
Completely different things.
I also
What a
had
good
that
idea, though, if
question,
you were to
but okay,
open an
great.
investing company. I actually am opening up an investing company tomorrow. It's called Berkshire Hathaway Partners. It's a very different company, though. Very different company.
Josh, without getting fired, I know that you train a lot of your clients in CrossFit gyms. So I know you interact with owners all the time, and I know that you interact with the pros all the time because you're usually emceeing a lot of these competitive CrossFit events. What's the vibe? What's the vibe from the athletes, from the fans, from the owners that you're picking up?
Well, in 2013, when CrossFit was at its peak, a lot of people predicted, 3-4 years, this CrossFit thing isn't going to be around anymore. And it's still here, and it's still thriving to a certain extent. Is it as big as it was before? Absolutely not. And, when you hire a new, VP or CEO, you're going to have a team, and they're trying to find what team is going to mesh well. I mean, I'm sure it's not an easy process. The vibe is, at least I live in Southern California, CrossFit isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There are gyms that open up. Do they stay in business? That is up for discussion. But for the most part, in Southern California, and I'm assuming in Florida and in New York, they seem to be thriving. The Middle America, that is where it's in question. Now, going back to, what John was saying about, is it as popular as it was in 2013 in the United States? I don't think so. But it's still not going away. They've still got TV contracts, whether it's CBS. They're still getting coverage. So clearly there is a market for it. But where you're seeing it explode is in South America, in Australia, in Europe. It's still thriving there. And so I think they just got to find that right person that is going to mesh kind of what Morning Chocolate was saying, the community aspect of it, because that is a big thing that is kind of missing, right? When Glassman changed the open date to October and kind of threw a wrench into the, CrossFit equation, I think a lot of people were immediately turned off just off that, not talking about the year later when all the controversy happened. So getting it back to, community first, CrossFit Games second, and a celebration of the community. I think that's what they're trying to find, because that is the missing link in all of this, is that when you go to the CrossFit Games, at least when I go, it's a huge community event. You go to Wadapalooza, same thing, huge community event. When you do the open in your gym, it's a huge community event, but you have to keep and maintain that momentum all year long. And there are gyms that kill it, right? CrossFit South Brooklyn kills it as far as community goes. Danny Soul's gym in Miami kills it when it comes to community. The gyms that I work out here, whether it's West LA Athletics or Rising Wave, they kill it when it comes to community. And I feel like that is a huge aspect that is still kind of being missed. And they're trying to address that issue by looking for someone that can bring that together.
I just think Josh brings up 2 points. So yeah, they are growing. Like from 2021 to 2022, our data shows that there was a slight increase in global affiliations. And so one of the things that may have driven that is that they reduced the affiliation fee by $750 in certain markets. And then the second thing that I agree with entirely with Josh is that we'll continue to see incredibly successful affiliates. Like the successful affiliate gym that is community driven will continue to crush it. But I think the days of like throw the banner on the front of a building, call it CrossFit, 500 leads are in your funnel, and you open the door with 150 members because you're allowed to drop barbells, those are long gone. I think the market's more sophisticated, and you have to be an incredible operator and an incredible trainer like a David Osorio at a CrossFit South Brooklyn in order to crush it running a CrossFit. But yeah, I agree with him 100%. It's not going anywhere.
I think what we're saying, Mateo, is that CrossFit HQ needs to hire David Osorio. Maybe he can bring it around, right? David's going to bring it back to the glory days.
I was going to say it should
not
be
a bad point. Yeah.
That's a good point. I was going to say, you know who should be CEO?
Joshy G.
That's my vote.
I was
That's
really
my
hoping
vote.
that you were going to say. I was really hoping you were going to say Vince McMahon because he's looking to buy and sell a bunch of things these days.
Oh
So
my God, that would be
That
so
would be
good.
amazing.
That would be so good.
only
be sick.
because I want the Vince McMahon open announcements. That's all I really want. Like 23.1 is 20 bar muscle ups for time. Like something silly like that. Like give me the Vince McMahon open announcements. That's what I want.
Dude, remember the
Wow.
old school open announcements where they would like pair the two athletes up against each other and thousands of us would just like watch the stream. They would just end with a wrestling match. Oh my God, they could charge like $50. That's like pay-per-view,
Dude,
That is the
sounds
closest
amazing.
to CrossFit WrestleMania that I'll ever get. But I think that, going back to what I was saying, just hiring someone that, understands the community aspect as well as, the marketing showmanship aspect and being able to bring that together. And you'll start to see a change. It's just finding that right person, and that's unfortunately because there's been so much turnaround, they just got to find it,
Josh, I have a question. Do you think there is a person other than Glassman that could fill those shoes?
Yeah, I do. And do I have anybody in mind outside of Vince McMahon? No. But I mean, like, people thought, when Castro was let go that, Castro was such a force and no one's going to be able to replace him. And to a certain extent, yes, they are correct. But I think Boz did a great job of stepping up and programming a very fun CrossFit Games to not only watch to see, but as an athlete, as athletes were coming off, they were expressing how much fun they were having. Now, that's no disrespect to Castro's programming of the CrossFit Games in the past, but again, Bosman stepped up, and I think that you'll start to see in these next few years the CrossFit Games as a spectator sport become really, really exciting because it causes people like Boz to have to step up and really show like, hey, look, I'm the right person for the job. Same thing for whoever steps into Glassman's shoes, right? You just can't sit back and wait for the checks to roll in. You also have to step up. And that's what I'm hoping for whoever they find to kind of fit whatever role they're looking for, to step up and really embrace the CrossFit community, but also find ways to make it better and to bring it back to those glory days. Because like you said, the data shows CrossFit in the United States is on a decline. How can we bring it back up? What's going to make it more exciting? What's going to drive people into those gyms? And then the other end of that is how are those people, those gym owners, going to keep those people into the gyms and not have them go out to try something new and exciting when, everything is under their roof?
So Bedros Keulian, I believe that's how you say his name, he's been in the gym world for a very long time. He started his career, I believe, selling supplements, and then he was a personal trainer. He had PT studios in San Diego, and then he founded Fit Body Bootcamp, a really large fitness franchise, from what I understand. And he was also a very good marketer. He still is a very good marketing coach. and admittedly, I have to give it to him, just a very skilled direct response copywriter. I copied a lot of the Fit Body Bootcamp 6-week challenge ads and the landing page copy. So I don't know if he's doing the copywriting, if he's got the chops, or if he just has someone who's got the he anointed some person to do it. But he's definitely one of the, I think, OG fitness gurus. Here's a couple clips I picked from the olden days of the gym guru who used to be the gym guru, Bedros Keulian. Here we go.
I'm going to teach you that. So here's how the new way of selling fitness looks. Ready? You sell once and you never have to sell that client again. Think about that. It's no different than a gym membership. It's no different than DirecTV, right? It's no different than what I pay for Amazon or Netflix. There's a monthly fee that I pay. At the end of the month, they don't come back to me and go, hey, do you want to buy another month of Netflix or do you want to buy another month of gym membership? They don't. It's just as long as I'm using it, I'm paying for the service. Do this. Go find a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. In fact, don't go to a Bentley dealership. Just don't. You know what a Bentley is? A Bentley is an almost Rolls Royce. That's what a Bentley is. So don't ever, listen, those of you that get to 7 figures and you decide you're a car fanatic like I am, don't go buying a Bentley. If you're going to buy a Bentley, just step up to the Rolls Royce.
So yeah, for the gym owners out there trying to make it to 6 figures, don't buy a Bentley, just buy the Rolls Royce. And yeah, I don't know if making your personal training packages, setting them to a recurring model, I don't know if that was revolutionary 60 years ago. I mean, maybe it was. I mean, but without a doubt, very charismatic guy, a really great salesman, and an amazing marketer. So he's got a new venture now. I think it's like a few years old by this point, but it's kind of making the rounds on the internet. This new project, it's actually called The Project. It's a man camp called the Modern Day Night Project, the MDK Project. And let's take a quick look at the sales video for this new venture.
Gentlemen, welcome to The Project. The Project is a 75-hour experience. It's for men just like you who know that you're meant for more, who know that you might have areas in your life that you're not performing at your highest level. You know you've got greater potential, and there's a higher purpose for you here. The Project is not an experience, it's also a process. It's like administering chemotherapy to a cancerous area of the body, and it's going to unearth and expose who you are. The physical challenging that you go through is purpose-driven. Every single evolution is purpose-driven. Every single evolution creates opportunity for 4 things: to lead, to show emotional discipline, to communicate, and to problem solve.
All right, so yeah, this thing is making the rounds on the internet. There are a couple of places where this is kind of blown up. I heard about it in a few places. One of them was Reddit. This made there's a subreddit called Sad Cringe, and this was a TikTok from the.
It would be an sad cringe.
There's a TikTok from the Modern Day Night Project here that went viral. There's a drill sergeant yelling at a bunch of participants, and this made it to the top a month or two ago. Low price of $15,000. You too can spend a weekend in a parking lot getting screamed at by a community college dropout afraid of changing the world. Other people responded. The almost veterans are at it again. Men will do literally anything except go to therapy. And then finally, guys like this have a humiliation fetish. So yeah, this is making the rounds. I have a lot to say about this, but any preliminary thoughts?
I just when I'm watching this video, I've never heard of this, but I have a story that's very similar to this. When I used to work at a CrossFit gym in my early days of CrossFit, the CrossFit coach that worked there, he worked with a lot of CrossFit Games athletes, and one of his ideas was to go down to I think it was Escondido or somewhere close to San Diego. There's something called Seal Fit, which this looks almost identical to that. Seal Fit, in case you don't know, I don't think it's $15,000, but I think it's maybe $1,500 or maybe $2,000 you spend for a weekend, and it's to emulate going through Navy SEAL training. And the purpose for the CrossFit Games athletes to go down there is to get mentally prepared, because at the CrossFit Games you get a lot of stuff thrown at you, and mentally they may not be ready for it. At least one of these athletes that this coach was training was not mentally prepared for a lot of things. So there was a small benefit to that. Now, would I spend $1,500 to $2,000 to be tortured all weekend? Absolutely not. When they came back, there was, they had all these abrasions and they were dehydrated, and it just seemed like mild torture. Did it help benefit them in the CrossFit Games? I believe they came in second and third that particular CrossFit Games. But for the most part, there is a small benefit as far as mental training. But what I'm seeing this guy do is basically steal that idea. He's not a Navy SEAL at all. These guys were hardcore Navy SEALs, so I understand the methodology behind it. But this just seems like a broad version, like something you'd see on Righteous Gemstones, that one guy who had like the gym cult putting together this crazy man camp where they're just yelling at you, and I don't see the benefit of it other than maybe some camaraderie or some community. Like, I don't know.
It is 100% stolen valor stuff, and I don't think I did a good job explaining what happens. I mean, the trailer does do some of that, but yeah, you go, it's 75 hours, you get screamed at by like former SEALs or former Marine guys or former SWAT guys. You have to crawl through like a pit of like shrapnel and gravel, and yes, you're getting torn up, you're getting dehydrated. And yeah, to the other kind of TikTok comment about like the humiliation fetish, like stuff like this is what's going on at the camp. And I feel like I've seen this expression on someone's face before in this exact position. I believe it's in a particular genre of film. I don't know. Where else do you guys see this kind of positioning? Mark, any ideas?
I have no idea. I've never seen anything actually like this in my entire life. I can't. Nothing. There's
Really?
There's no similar image that's very, very similar that comes to mind for me. That's for sure.
Oh, interesting. Well, this one came to mind. This one definitely came to mind.
She's feeding her
when
milk. That's so nice.
To me, I feel like, again, I've seen this in certain films, certain genre of entertainment. Yeah.
I mean, it's nurturing. She's holding her hair back.
Right.
She's feeding her nourishing milk. It's pretty wholesome, actually.
I mean, like, yeah. And look, I'm not here to fetish shame anybody. If you're into that, you want to spend $15,000. Yeah, if you want to spend $15,000 to get yelled at by these guys, that's great. More power to you. But I just don't see what the benefit is. To one of those comments was, it would just be easier to go to therapy or to talk to your friends. Like, do that. If you're really going through stuff, like, go seek professional help. Don't spend, the price of a Kia Elantra to go get yelled at for a weekend. You know what I mean? Or it just seems a little much.
It's all like white dudes. And
it's
like
all white dudes. You have to wear
as a white dude.
Go for it.
Like it's not that hard being like a white male. Like, I don't understand what the trials and tribulations that these guys are suffering through. Like, it's literally the easiest ticket to get dealt. Like,
so I think that is part. You're kind of hitting on it there, John. Like, that is part of it, because it's easy being a white dude. You got to go through some trauma, so you're gonna pay for it to go through it for a weekend, just so you can feel something, just so you can finally have gone through like something traumatic, so you can say, I overcame adversity. Finally, you have to, because these guys are all in their 40s.
So like these guys go back to like their black friends, and they're like, yeah, no, I've been through some stuff. Like
exactly.
I mean,
I think that's part of it. I certainly think that's part of it. I mean, there's another version of this that I heard about through my research, and I think there's like a documentary like called Understanding Karen or something Karen, where it's a dinner for women, I believe mostly white women, and you pay $5,000 to go, and the two hosts of the dinner are like people of color, and they just start the conversation so you don't think you're a racist. And the whole dinner is just for white women to be told that, oh yes, I am actually a Karen. You're right. I'm not a Karen. And the whole dinner you're paying for the experience to finally come to a realization, oh, I am actually a true Karen. So this is just the male version of that.
That was my exact question, was what is the female version of this? And so
that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Well, I know in SEAL Fit, like, everybody can go, right? Men, women, everybody can go to SEAL Fit. And I see somewhat, like I was saying earlier, the somewhat benefit to that, where if you're training for something extremely grueling, like a CrossFit Games, let's say you want to climb, Mount Everest or whatever, and you are the type of person that's like, when things get tough, you want to quit, you want to walk away. I get why this type of training might be a little bit beneficial, but if you have nothing and you just want to get yelled at for the weekend and spend an exuberant amount of money, that to me is what seems odd.
But is it alpha? Like if your friend was like, "Yo, I went to the alpha camp," like, is your natural thought like, "Man, that's badass. That guy is sick."
My personal is like, oh wow, that's cool. I would never want to do that. That does not sound fun to me. Spend that money and go on a trip, go somewhere exotic. But to get yelled at over the weekend just to be like, I'm alpha, no, I would
You're
not
saying
be like.
This is not alpha, John, the participant here wearing the white shirt with his last name on it. You don't think this is alpha?
They said it was like chemotherapy, right? Like you need to target the beta, and they get it out of your body. They remove the cuck, and so maybe that's what the knife is for. It's like they're cutting it out of his body.
So this is not the only one of these. The actual first incarnation of this that I saw was the Wake Up Warrior program, and this was a guy, Garrett J. White, who. We use ClickFunnels a lot when we were teaching how to market, and he's like one of the main testimonial guys for ClickFunnels. He's like, I made my whole business off of ClickFunnels, and he made, from what seemed to be a lot of money, off of a very similar program.
Yes.
Let's just take a real quick look at this.
Dude, his marketing was so good.
It was. So let's take a look.
The answer to the questions will never be found on the outside. There is a global movement. It began 10 years ago. But a message that came from God hundreds of years ago that is calling to a man like you, that called to a man like me, that called to 50,000 plus men just like you to stand up, to wake up, and to rise.
So
it's funny. Everybody not to bring it back to professional wrestling, but I'm going to. Everybody has a gimmick, and when I watch these videos, I see that guy, the guy before, Liver King. Everybody's got a gimmick, and they're just trying to sell something to somebody who's looking for answers, who's looking for purpose. And that's not how that guy talks in real life. Liver King does not walk around his household with his shirt off. It's all a gimmick to sell shit, and they're doing a really great job of it, and they're reaching an audience. But that's all this shit is. It's just a gimmick, and it's just hysterical coming from a fan of professional wrestling and seeing people make fun of it. Oh, it's not real. It's fake. These people aren't real. Well, these people aren't real either. This is complete bullshit. It's just funny to watch.
So it's funny you say that he doesn't actually talk like that. And John, it was funny that you said, you have to, it's like a cancer, you're killing your inner bitch. Garrett J. White, I think actually, you think it's a character. I think he actually did kill his inner bitch. I think he actually did do the procedure. Because I found some earlier videos from when he used to be a business and marketing coach. Let's take a quick look.
This is Garrett J. White, the authentic entrepreneur, coming at you real, raw, and you were waiting for it, weren't you? Relevant! And this, my friends, is the business breakthrough. Now, today we're going to talk about, some of my favorite topics, speaking. I've told you before that of all of my children, if I had a lot of children, of all my children, speaking would be my favorite child. Even if it was the youngest child, the middle child, or the child still pooped his pants. It would be my favorite child. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple things. Last week, we were like... fun one, right? Today, we're going to talk about a little extension of what to do with your hands. Last episode, or last week, I told you some things not to do with your hands. Today, we're going to talk about some things to do with your hands.
Is he from California? Like 100% of these guys are from California.
I miss that Garrett J. White. I wish he would come back, but that's just me.
What do we know about his background? I assume he was a professional actor. I assume, and the reason
exactly.
I assume that
Must
is,
have been.
I mean, the level
Must have
of,
been.
I mean, again, the level of quality of it's not for me. It's too far. Like, I think it's like hilarious, and I suspect we're probably all on that boat. But nonetheless, right, the craft of the cinema, the drama of those, I mean, it's unprecedented, right? And even like him in that thing, and I say this because for people who don't know, I was a professional actor for many years. I'm a classically trained actor. So this is clearly seeing the different versions of this individual is somebody that really knows how to use acting skills to become who they need to be, to, you know, on the nice side, to teach, to inspire the people, and on the not necessarily wrong per se, but different incentive to get money from you and to sell things, right? And again, I'm truly not judging that. It sounds like I'm being judged, Judy. I'm not. I truly am actually just like, this individual has craft. Again, does not speak to me, and I'm happy to, you know, share maybe some thoughts about this whole phenomenon broadly. But my point here is this guy, he's good at doing the thing. He'll look you in the eyes and he'll say the words, and it's the words, and it's a thing. So I think, and I hope that when I launch, you know, Wake Up Soldier or Wake Up Hero in 10
Wake
years
Up
time,
Unicorn.
and I have a very
Wake
different
Up Unicorn.
when I lost Wake Up Unicorn, and I'm like, you know, there, not with my Bentley, as I think we've learned. When I'm there with my Rolls Royce, you know, I hope that you will all not show videos of me talking here and blow my cover, okay?
Yeah, I don't think he killed, you know, the bitch or whatever. He found a character that works for him, and that's what's going to make him money. And going off of what Mark said, like, he was trying to perfect a character or whatever to sell whatever he's trying to sell, and he
landed on
it.
Batman. He landed on
Yeah,
Bruce Wayne.
he founded it. Yeah,
And I think there's a again, I don't know this individual obviously. My assumption is it is relatively sincere, right? Because, you know, we can go down a real rabbit hole of psychology, of sort of identity creation, to what extent are each and every one of us choosing who we want to be based on the models we see around us, based on our natural tendencies. There's a whole piece of this too, which is part of what this doesn't appeal to me. That's just like, it's just like an aesthetic disconnect, right? Just like not the right thing, and some of it is values, and there's things about it that I probably just, you know, disagree with, like psychologically being helpful. But I imagine that while I'm not sure that that individual walks around in his living room like, "Hello, wife, it's time to do," that is probably a curated. And there's probably a curated identity, and I'm certain, because we all know the way these things go, right? Probably part of the shtick, both the marketing and sales at the beginning of the conference, is he tells his story. And I mean, his story was, I used to be this, you know, very over-top guy, and it was all like a front. And now that I'm really grounded, and like, you can too, with my, you know, 12-step Tom Brady plan, you know, $15,000, please. I have to say there, because I really thought long and hard about this, right? Because the thing, two things I will start with is one that, you know, I don't actually know Bedros personally, but I actually did speak at the Fitness Business Summit several years ago, and that was still a thing. And I think, to your point, Matteo, I have to attribute, I've learned a lot about marketing and sales from him over the years, because he was the OG guy, right? There was a period in the early 2010s, certainly late aughts, there almost wasn't anyone else doing it. He was the first person to do a coaching group at scale. So I've definitely learned a lot from Bedros when it comes to business stuff over the years. This particular phenomenon is so not of interest to me. I have such a strong aversion to it. So I was sort of asking myself kind of what that's about. And, you know, I will say this, right? I think there are some things about it that I really see the value, right? Because joking aside, listen, there are a lot of unhappy dudes in this world, like deeply, deeply lonely, unhappy dudes. And I think we can, you know, understandably have maybe some limits to how much sympathy we might have for all the reasons we've discussed as far as the relative, you know, privileges of various social identities, but they're still suffering, right? And I think for some people, it's probably not the four of us, but for some people, they need something drastic like this to shake them out of it. Now, the flavor of it that other people might be drawn to, that is, again, a very different aesthetic packaging of it, might be anything from, like, you know, a Tony Robbins event, where very, very famously, again, a lot of people love it, and way more mainstream acceptable, but the really beautiful leveraging of really profound group psychological manipulation techniques, like really strong cult stuff, like don't let people eat, don't let them sleep, like that stuff, again, you're playing with fire psychologically, but can actually be effective, and I think serve a place. And furthermore, paying a real cost can be very, very valuable, right? These types of things, because there's so much money invested in this, there's such a physical toll to it, I do think it can shake some people out of their life when they need that kind of disruption, right? And I will also say, to the defense of everyone involved, like, it's pretty clear what this is. Like, I don't think like, you know, like we're going to accidentally like pay her $15,000 and think like, oh, I thought this was just going to be like meditating and just like making some songs together. You want me to carry that log? We have to carry that log, right? Why are you yelling at me, right? And I'm going to give you one other positive thing. I do think for a certain kind of individual, I could see this potentially facilitating a type of connection and a type of, they wouldn't use these words, but I would, a sort of nourishing kinship, a community with like-minded men that really see you, that you can, in their way, it's different than the way I would do it, that they can really experience vulnerability. For downsides, the two I'll give you is that one, I do think it is fair to say this also is potentially replicating some really deeply unhelpful power oppression dynamics, right? Like, so if I'm in a place where I need, like to get kicked out of something, I need like an authority figure to like beat me and berate me, and that's the only way I know how to take action. I have to be like sufficiently...
Why do you say that? Why do you say that about this program?
Well, listen. And again, I haven't done it, so I don't know. I do think the final downside that I see, of course, is that someone might die. And that for me makes me nervous.
There are definitely rumors circulating that someone has. And yeah, half the people don't make it out of this program. And like the ones who don't like come back with like really like long-term knee problems, back problems, whatever. And the ones who do make it, just another point about how this to me is like, yeah, like some kind of weird domination fetish is like graduates become savage servants. You become a servant. You become a sub. So to me, that's just my take on that.
I do think there actually is probably takeaway here for gym owners. Now, this really depends on the type of person you are. And certainly, you know, I think we are obviously having a lot of fun here because this is not it doesn't seem like the correct style or as values fit perhaps for this quorum over here. But you know, in general, one of the ongoing topics are people are looking for fitness more than just the fitness. And this kind of mindset thing, this is becoming a really big deal. And it's interesting because gym owners classically don't leverage this, but in the yoga land, the class-based boutique fitness space, wellness retreats are becoming a big, big thing. So again, you know, I would encourage you to think about whether you want to involve like knives with your clients, but there probably is an opportunity if you are that type of pseudo cult leader in your gym environment and you can put together some decent, you know, whatever your flavor is of this personal development thing where you take people into a semi-intense experience, again, probably without the knives, for a several day period. You probably can charge a relatively decent premium for it. It would be valuable for them because a lot of people do benefit, I think, from these opportunities to step out of their day-to-day life and think about what matters to me, how am I showing up in the world, and again, this is obviously on the one side. The other far extreme would be some sort of, you know, let's go to Bali and just do yoga and drink water and then like just take a ton of ayahuasca one day. And I think there's a lot of things in there in between that gym owners could consider offering, with my one caveat being see our first item about be careful about what you add if you're not actually going to be great at it and promote it and deliver it well. But I think more gym owners could consider doing something like this without the knives.
100%. Going back to that Accenture report we were talking about earlier, another category that people are going to increase their spend on are wellness retreats, especially millennials. Like they have a lot booked in 2023. So that's totally valid point, Mark.
These guys became incredibly wealthy. The thing that you can learn from these guys is marketing. Like Gare White,
also true.
Bedros Keulian, they're incredible marketers. And even if you like don't believe in man camps or alpha boot camps or you know it's not your thing, like it is very clear that what they're doing resonates with an audience. It carries an incredible amount of value. They're able to package and position it well, and they're able to communicate in a way that like scrambles people's brains and helps them think like, hey, there's $15,000 of value here. Like if I do this is going to solve a problem that is so big and burning in my life that I'm willing to forego a car payment or a small car in order to go to this weekend man retreat. And I think that is the cornerstone of any, like selling any high ticket program. And any gym owner, you know, Mark, your gym is doing high ticket. Like I think there is a lot that you can learn from these people, and I think that is that's the flip side of the coin. You know, if you don't want to do this, if you don't agree with it, you can still learn the sorcery and apply it to your own business and make a ton of money.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps it up. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.